Hello, 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 and welcome, Sacred Bombshell Tribe. It's me, your sister, Abiola Abrams, the midwife for your inspired life from sacredbombshell.com and Sacred Business Academy. Welcome to Spiritpreneur School, where spirited entrepreneurs get their mojo. This is a really exciting session that we have planned. And first, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor. Today's Spiritpreneur School is sponsored by TakeTheLeadWomen.com. Take the Lead prepares, develops, inspires, and propels women to take their fair and equal share of leadership positions across all sectors. It's today's women's movement, a unique catalyst for women to embrace power. Take the Lead was founded by Gloria Felt. Find our Spiritpreneur School dialogue with Gloria in our archives at sacredbombshell.com or spiritpreneur.net. And now let's say hello to this beautiful creature who is here with us. Allow me to introduce Bex Burton, a.k.a. the Bex. Hello, Bex.
Hello, Abiola. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Oh, thank you so much for being here and sharing your time and your knowledge and your Bexiosity.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. You're just so wonderful. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Thank you, sis. Okay, so let me tell the people all about you. We've got Sacred Bombshell Tribe meeting Bexico today.
It's true.
So, Bex Burton is a certified Pilates trainer, Hoop Revolution and Hoopnautica certified teacher, Thai body worker, and a professional anatomy geek. She has a 33-year dance background. I don't know how, because you don't even look 33 years old. And she has been teaching movement professionally since 2003. She's taught classes in ballet, modern dance, spinning, cardio, and strength training, hoop dance, Pilates mat, and her specialty, rehabilitative private Pilates on the equipment. In 2014, Bex relocated her New York City-based business, we miss you, Bex, already, Sense of Motion, to Boulder, Colorado, where she offers joyful movement, preventative wellness, and education services both locally and nationally. She also has an exciting new direction that she's going in with, and she's got some special knowledge in that area. We'll be telling you about that as we go on. And I just want you to know that Bex is the real deal. Her hoop dance has been featured in the New York Times, Shape, numerous blogs all across the universe, the multiverse, as we like to say. So, Bex, that's who your bio says that you are. Quite impressive. Tell us, who is Bex? Where is Bexico? Tell us all about you personally and professionally.
Oh, well, Bex, I am the queen and the president of Bexico.
Yes.
And Bexico is really, well, literally, it's a 3-foot radius of me. So, but broadly, it's my community of women and men that are interested in joyful wellness. The people who they want to be healthy, they want to lead healthy lives, but they want to have fun doing it too. So anybody who partakes in my products or services, or anybody who's really interested in the idea of joyful wellness, those are Bexicans, and those are the people that I love working with and teaching and changing their lives.
Beautiful. Well, I consider myself to be a new citizen of Bexico. You should make passports and the whole thing, Bex. We need stuff.
I'm working on it.
Okay, good. Well, everything that you're doing just looks like so much fun. I considered myself to be a minor hula hoop champ when I was a kid. I wasn't anything close to you, but I could do it on the waist and the hands and the neck and everything like that. My sister is really good. When I let people know about this conversation, it was around the idea of you being a wellness guru who built a business on expert hooping, which is amazing. Tell us, what was the most fun thing about building a business around hooping? Is this what you thought you'd be doing? Tell us more about that.
Well, gosh, I think the bottom line really is that the most fun thing about it, not only the practice of hula hooping is fun and dance, but for me, as the leader and the guide of that movement, the most fun thing for me is changing people's lives. You know, we can challenge ourselves in a number of different ways, and in my practice, giving people movement skills to challenge them is a really incredible way for them to tap into their potential. Because if they can overcome movement challenges in their life, if they can pick up a hula hoop and try something new or something that they haven't done for 20 or 30 years, and be able to overcome that initial hurdle and be able to hula hoop at the waist for a full minute, I mean, that's such a gratifying experience. And for me, the most fun part of all of that is sneaking in the bigger life metaphors and really equating movement challenges and movement success with our greater life challenges and the successes that we can achieve in our life. So for me, as a movement teacher, as the Queen of Bexico, that is the most fun for me, is really just changing people's perspectives through movement.
Oh, that's beautiful, changing people's perspectives through movement. And I really want people to see what it is you do. I'm going to post a link after this conversation at facebook.com/Abiola TV so that you could just see the magic that this woman makes and the beauty that she brings to movement. Now, I recently emailed Sacred Bombshell Tribe Bex to ask them what their biggest challenges are that they face as spiritpreneurs. And for many, many, many members, it was self-doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Did you face self-doubt at all when you thought, okay, hooping, I want to bring this to the world in a bigger way? And if so, how do you deal with those inner bully voices?
Oh, sure. I think self-doubt is a regular visitor at my door, and I don't think of it as such a negative thing, though. I try to look at self-doubt and why it's showing up at my door, and generally it's fear dressed up in a pretty coat of self-doubt, and so I ask it to take off its coat, and then I address it as fear, or whatever the underlying issue is. Why is that self-doubt showing up? And then I treat it like any other emotion. You know, I think that emotions are really important. I think they're important to recognize and honor and even talk to. One of my former coaches taught me how to speak to my emotions like it were literally a visitor at my door. So I talk to my fear. I try to figure out what it wants from me. Why is it being so persistent? Why is it trying to get my attention? And you know, a lot of times it's like, well, I don't want you to fail, or I don't want you to make a fool out of yourself, and then I start to get into the, well, what's the worst that can happen game? You know, if I do fail, what's the worst that can happen? I can show back up again the next day and try again. You know, but I try to talk to the self-doubt. I try to talk to the emotion, and I try to thank it for showing up and for showing me something or trying to bring something to my attention, even if it's irrational. You know, I say thank you, I appreciate that, I'll take that into consideration. You can go now. And then I dismiss it. I try to let it go, and I try to keep on moving forward with whatever task that self-doubt was trying to keep me from.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I like people to have actionable things that they can do immediately and put into use right away. And actually talking to your emotions in that way and saying thank you is one of the things that I share in the Sacred Bombshell Handbook of Self-Love. And I think that that's so important because we are so averse to feeling our feelings. And your work is all about getting us into our body and really feeling our feelings.
And when we don't feel and when we don't honor those emotions, whether they're good or bad, they get trapped in our bodies, and then that results in a number of different complications, including pain, disease, you know, and all sorts of other physical conditions, because we're not honoring what's actually going on in our emotional system.
I'm so glad that you said that, because people might look and see the beauty of what you're doing and think that it's a leisure thing, or oh, that's just fun, but this really is health and wellness and well-being. It's really, really critical to be able to have that relationship with your body.
Definitely. It works on so many levels. So many levels. Yeah.
So, Bex, is there a quote, a key principle, or a mantra, as I like to call mantras, that governs your life that you would like to share?
Absolutely. I use this one interchangeably. It was taught to me by a friend of mine several years ago when I was going through a financial struggle, and it was, money is coming from everywhere. And I repeat that several times. But the way that I interchange it actually is I substitute whatever I feel like I'm struggling with into that money portion. Money is coming from everywhere, works all the time. You know, you can use that every day. But if it's self-doubt, then I can say confidence is coming from everywhere. Confidence is coming from everywhere. And then I try to put that mantra into practice and up my feelers and up my awareness to the confidence that's being displayed around me. Like, who around me is showing confidence? You know, and I try to recognize that, and then I remember that confidence is coming from everywhere.
I love that. Can we Bex, let's repeat that 5 times. As you said, you like to do the repetition. I think is so important. Let's repeat the confidence is coming from everywhere, since we've been talking about self-doubt. Okay, ready? All right, so wait. 3, 2, 1. Confidence is coming from everywhere. Confidence is coming
from everywhere.
Confidence is coming from everywhere. Confidence is coming from everywhere. Confidence
is coming from everywhere.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That was very powerful. I feel the shift. There actually was a perceptible shift in the energy with that. Thank you for that tool. And the money coming from everywhere, I think, is a really important one. And actually, I was going to ask this a little bit later on, but since you brought it up, let's talk about being a creative entrepreneur, spiritpreneur, as I like to call us, and the idea of money. You're an artist. You know, there's in our society, our culture, the idea of the starving artist, the broke artist. People, you know, have the idea that somehow there's nobility in being broke. I had that a long time. Yeah. Other people have challenges thinking money is the root of all evil, and all kinds of religious associations. Can you talk a bit about money and abundance and your business and what you do?
Totally. I definitely had those ideas of you know, poverty as nobility for a long time. I still have some people who I call friends, even though they're not in my immediate network any longer, that live in that mindset. But you know, I think that it goes along the lines of playing small. You know, like, nobody benefits when we play small. And in the same line, like, nobody benefits when we're broke. You know, not us, not those around us. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to struggle. You know, when we have trouble covering our own expenses, whether it's our living expenses or, you know, our travel or business expenses, you know, when we struggle with that without looking or seeking a solution, I mean, it takes up so much of our bandwidth, our brain space, that we can't be effective in the roles that we have either chosen or stepped into, right? But when we accept that money is just another tool to be successful in the roles that we've chosen or stepped into, there's so much more that's possible. I mean, I think of some of the most powerful leaders on the planet, you know, some of those positive, powerful leaders, and they have loads of money and they do amazing things with it. You know, I feel like, you know, if we're authentic, genuine human beings at the get-go, a windfall or a steady income that supports our dreams and visions is not going to change that. You know, in my experience, it only allows me to help serve my people more effectively and support the endeavors of my artist friends that I want to see succeed. You know, abundance, like I said before, that mantra, money is coming from everywhere. Money is coming from everywhere. One of the exercises that I practice is an abundance journal. My friend actually coined it my Rolodex. It's a spiral index card. And every day I write down all of the things that make me feel abundant, whether it's something that makes me smile or something that makes me feel rich, or you know, but it's just a place where I record on a new sheet every single day all the moments that I feel magic or expansion, or, you know, and it doesn't have to be like, well, my client paid me today. It's more like, I saw 3 puppies in the creek yesterday. And
yes.
It was, you know, or I caught the clock at 1, 2, 3, 4, or at 11:11. You know, I take a lot of significance in catching moments like that. You know, so I record all of those moments of abundance, and I feel like I'm rewarded with even more moments and the numbers, the finances that back that up.
I love that, Bex, and I'm going to challenge you, my sacred bombshell Bexico sister, to put together for us so that people can download from your site maybe a one-sheet printable Rolodex that they could, you know, have a one-page abundance journal. I so love that. I have one I call my Miracles, Magic, and Mojo journal, where, you know, I keep track of, you know, the miracles that happen, because all kinds of miracles happen on a daily basis, and that's abundance.
Absolutely, it is. If we, you know, and that's, I think one of the biggest things is really just that mindset of being aware to it, because we can go through life, and even if we are aware to it, we'll notice them. But there's something so different about writing them down in the moment, so that at the end of the day, you have this log of 5, 10, or 20 different instances where your day was full of this. Whereas, you know, if you just keep them in your memory, at the end of the day, you might remember 2 or 3 of them. You know, and you may forget some of the smaller ones, and they're all very important.
Yes, and this is the work that, you know, the play or work, however you want to look at it, that when you see positive people like Bex, you know, people, there are things that she does, practices that come into her life that then shine for her as a human being and as, you know, a spiritpreneur, because how we do anything is how we do everything, right?
Absolutely.
So, Bex, were there naysayers in your life when you said, you know, I want to build a business around hula hooping? What was the response of the people in your life? And when did you declare that? Because you're a lifelong dancer. When did you declare that?
Well, I love this question because I stopped dancing, actually, for 7 years. When I was entering undergrad, I was exploring all these different creative creative paths that I could go down, and you know, I want to say that there weren't any naysayers, because I'm so strong-willed that people around me know not to tell me no. But I will say, though, that my parents did steer me lovingly but very convincingly towards a more practical course of study in my undergraduate degree, and you know, and at this point, like, I don't think that was really them saying no. I think that they were lovingly trying to set me up for success. And the evolution of my business, it really just kind of unfolded. I mean, I did study communications, and I moved to New York with a communications job, but at that point I had begun dancing again and was so passionate about movement. I couldn't sit still at work. I had to turn cartwheels and go out into the hallway, run up and down the stairs, and around that time I was entering my Pilates training, and by the time I decided that I wanted to be a hula hoop teacher, I had already left my marketing job, and I was already working as a full-time Pilates instructor. So it kind of felt like a natural progression for me to pick up the hoop in a teaching role. But I had self-doubt issues. I contacted my friend who was already a teacher in the city, and I was like, hey, I don't want to step on any toes. And he was like, girl, what are you talking about? Like, just do it. Like, you're going to be amazing. You know, so, but, yeah, and even with this new direction that I'm looking at, you know, nobody's really telling me no. I think that there are people very, very close to me that express their concern and want to make sure that I'm doing my research and that I'm, you know, really confident about my decision. But I think people are smarter than to tell me no.
Yeah, I think they are too. You don't look like a girl that, you know, is easily like blowing where the wind goes. So that's great. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And so what is your current business model? That this is such a comfortable question for a conversation that men have easily, but when it comes to women, us just saying, okay, well, how did you build? What's the brass tacks of your business? What does it look like? You know, for some reason, it's an awkward conversation. What's your current business model?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have any awkwardness around it. I will say that it's changed drastically since I left New York. And I don't know that when I made that decision, I fully embraced the enormity of that decision. But these days, now that I'm in a new location, I have a couple of private clients that I see in their home each week. I teach a couple of classes at the local university, and then I also am completing production on a hoop teacher training that I've been working on for about a year. It's called More Badass in Your Class.
Yeah.
And then I'm also just starting to work on a free online event for this new idea that I'm just started building. You know, it's but my business model, like I work about 40 hours a week. Well, I schedule about 40 hours a week, but I schedule, part of that is my own movement practice, part of that is my my lunchtime. I schedule that, and I consider that my 40-hour work week. I also schedule in breaks and spontaneity, but yeah, most of it is comprised of, it's about half and half, comprised of teaching live local folks. I do have a couple of distance clients that I see via Skype. And then the video production on the teacher training, and lots of networking about for my interview series coming up.
Very cool. And when you were in New York, you had a space, right? You had your own Sense of Motion as your brand, and you had a Sense of Motion space. Is that correct?
I didn't have my own studio. I had an in-home studio.
Okay.
And then I rented spaces in New York to save on overhead, and you know, for a long time I was just like, I just wasn't convinced that I wanted my own movement space, movement studio. You know, so I worked around that quite a bit. I rented spaces in 2 or 3 different locations, but over the course of 5 or 6 years, those really became my flagship spaces. And then in the last year and a half that I was in New York, I had this gorgeous 1,000 square foot warehouse apartment with hardwood floors that I could fit like 5 hoopers in there and do a Pilates class of 4 people. So that was a really special setup.
That sounds amazing. And I know that you do retreats as well. So will the Badass training, will that be online or an in-person thing or a combination?
It is More Badass in Your Class is internet-based. It is online, and it's actually live, and it's already underway. I've got about, 2 or 3 dozen students who are going through the coursework material. But I absolutely love working with people in person, and I know that there will be live events coming through that soon.
Okay, very cool. Badass in Your Class. So Bex, now I'm going to ask you if you could please share with us a story of spiritpreneur self-sabotage from your private personal archives.
Sure. Well, when you asked me that question, I really had to rack my brain, and I realized why, I think, at this point. But But the story that's most front of mind, I think, was my decision to leave New York City. And for a long time, I've been in Colorado now for just about a year and a half, and for a very long time, I think I had these subconscious feelings, or just under the surface feelings, that was like just the most self-sabotaging move that I could do for my business. Because in New York, I had a full roster of clients. I was teaching 4 hoop classes a week. I was making money. I was self-sustaining. It was fantastic, or so I thought. And coming out to Colorado, I felt like this enormous wall to climb about setting up my business here, and finding my clientele, and setting up my classes. And I felt this enormous pressure, and I was just like, why on earth did I leave? It was just like kind of second guessing all those reasons that I had for leaving the city. And now, a year and a half out, I realized that what I thought was self-sabotage was actually self-preservation. That I knew, it's funny, because I knew that it was time to go, but then once I was gone, I was like, what the F did I do?
Yeah.
Right? But now that I've had a little bit of time and space, I realized that my business was thriving, but it didn't have a lot of room to grow. I think that it was sort of in a contained model that, had I kept on going like that for however many years, I've reached burnout. And coming out to Colorado, I realized that was the biggest act of self-preservation that I could have done for myself. And it's afforded me this just an expansion of thought as far as my business is concerned, as far as like what's possible, and who I want to talk to, and how I want to accomplish things. And so for me personally, I think that self-sabotage is kind of a tricky label, because I think we struggle so much with making decisions in the first place that for me, in my experience, I have to make a decision and be confident about it. And once I've pointed myself in the direction of that decision, I feel like I can't fail, because I've made the decision, I've pointed myself in that direction, and I'm going to land on my feet no matter what, So I always, and all the other examples of self-sabotage that I went through in my brain, I just kept on thinking, well, I landed on my feet, and everything worked out okay. So, I would just, just caution people, that might be getting stuck in that habit of questioning their decisions, and allowing the decision-making process to be fun and exciting, and an opportunity for people to rise to the occasion and be quick and point yourself and move forward, so that we can get through that indecisiveness that I think holds us back, and reframe the self-sabotage into well, how am I going to come out of this one okay?
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing such an intimate, personal story with us. I think that a lot of people will be enriched by your journey in that way, and the way that you shared that. And most of the time that things do work out well, that everything, everything is happening for us, and eventually, sometimes there's that lesson, or things I find end up being better than maybe we had anticipated, had they gone the way that we would have wanted them to go, and so there are all kinds of magical things at play.
Absolutely.
I would also, now I'm going to make a big assumption here, Bex. I assume that as a dancer and as a wellness guru that you are disciplined by nature to have learned those practices. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. I would assume
I love
that.
the assumption.
Yes.
I love the assumption, but discipline is a practice. I don't know too many people that are disciplined by nature. I think, and maybe that's the people that I surround myself with, but for me, discipline is definitely a practice. I was an emotional eater. I've struggled with body image issues for most of my life. I quit dancing for 7 years to explore lots of artistic endeavors, but also to kind of I was stuck in body issues. So returning to dance for me was a gift of self-preservation and almost like a dare, like, okay, well, how fit can you get, or like how strong can you be, and but I'm I like to be lazy. I do love to dance, but yeah, I mean, I can definitely get stuck in my ways. I don't know if you knew this, but I don't know if you can see that, but I have the word discipline tattooed on my right arm, so that I remember to be disciplined, and that it could inspire me that that discipline is a gift. It's a gift to yourself.
That is an awesome way of looking at it, that I actually, because I also had challenges with body image and food issues, as you said, and emotional eating, and I had to reframe the way that I was looking at discipline, because it can have very unhealthy, anything taken to an extreme can have very unhealthy things about it, and I reframed it as blissipline is what I call it in the Sacred Bombshell Handbook of Self-Love, approaching things with blissipline instead. How do you deal with procrastination? Is that something that you deal with?
Sure. I love blissipline. If I had known you 10 years ago, I would have had that tattooed on my arm.
Yeah, it's not too late, Bex.
It's the other arm. Oh gosh, procrastination. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Well, again, procrastination, I think, is the activity that is the result of an emotion, and so I try to look at what emotion is causing my procrastination. And for me, a lot of times it's overwhelm. I will be looking at I'll be facing down a project, and I'll be just so overwhelmed with the enormity of it, because I try not to be, but I know that parts of me are type A. And I, for some reason, look at a big project and I think I have to do it in one sitting. And I know a lot of people experience that. And even if we rationally know that that's not possible, we need to get in the zone, and we need to stay in the zone until it's done. And for a long time, if I didn't have 5 or 6 hours of my day set aside for that one thing, then I wouldn't do it, because I needed to be in the zone. But then it would never get done, because I would just keep putting it off and keep putting it off. So I deal with procrastination. Like I said, I try to peel it back. I try to look at what's the root of it. And more often than not, in my experience, it's overwhelm. And then I'll look at the project, and I'll try to just break it down into the most micro bits as possible. I'm a big fan of structure, after having not been a big fan of structure for a very long time, but I'm a big fan of blocking out my calendar in Google Calendar in just like 2-hour blocks. I block in, like I said before, I block in an hour for lunch, and I block in some spontaneity and some walks, but I block in 2 hours of working time, and as I go through the week, I fill in what project that I'm working on, and I'll just work on it for 2 hours at a time. If I'm on a deadline, I'll maybe make it a 3-hour block, or I'll jump back in a 2-hour afternoon block. But I try to be really realistic and loving with myself, with my expectations, in what I can get done in a day, in what I can get done in 2 hours. And, you know, there's so many times where I'm filling in that calendar and I'd be like, I'm totally underscheduling. Like, I'm going to have so much leftover time from this, but then something will come up, or, you know, this email takes a lot longer, or, you know, so things come up, and I really just try to be as, like I said, just as loving with myself, and I just know that I can only accomplish so much. And and then there's this beautiful quote that a sister friend of mine gave to me, and I think it's a Ram Dass quote. She said, he said, the snake sheds its skin in the amount of time that it takes to shed its skin. And I think that applies for the changes that we go through in life, and also the work we have to do. It takes the time that it takes, you know. And if you have to set a deadline, then be compassionate with that deadline. Make sure that you're giving yourself reasonable time to get this task done. You know, you're not going to rip the skin off the snake.
Yeah, I love that you said that. That was so beautiful, Bex. And I also enjoy the fact that you schedule your spontaneity. That it's important to put you on the calendar.
It's true. You know, and it shifts around. I mean, the idea is that, like, all of my hours in the day are accounted for, but if spontaneity happens earlier in the day, then I'll shift it around, you know. But I allow for that time because things come up. We can't schedule every moment of our day, but we can do our best to give ourselves a guideline. And that, for me, helps so much with procrastination, with overwhelm, all of those things.
Well said. Thank you for sharing that. Well, your motto on your site it says, "Sense of motion is your oasis for joyful wellness through movement." All right, so let's have some juicy conversation about your marketing, promotion, and advertising. As a spiritpreneur, how do you get the word out? A lot of people are, you know, maybe yoginis like you, or have some sort of a physical business or services. How do you get the word out?
Sure. Lots of different ways. As many ways as possible. When my business was primarily locally based in New York, I spent a lot of time out in the public with my hula hoop, either by myself or with hundreds of hoopers by my side. One of the biggest promotional events that I would do each year was organize, produce, choreograph a big group hoop performance at either one or multiple New York events a year.
I feel like I've seen that. I'm like, that was you? That's awesome.
It's possible. We've been in the New York City Dance Parade. We've been at the Figment Festival. We performed for Shashama. My group has done quite a bit. And my group is not necessarily, you know, I would open those performances up to any hula hooper who wanted to be part of it, regardless of their age, their skill. The choreography that I made had different levels, so you could be like a basic dancer, or you could be an intermediate. You could be a rock star hula hooper and have your own, you know, level of performing. And I got so many new students from that because they would see it. They'd see this big sea of hula hoopers performing, and they'd naturally be curious. They'd be very interested in getting involved. And then, of course, I'd shoot a video of the performance, so that would go online, and people would see that, and I'd get more business from that. I teach at hula hoop events around the country. There are a number of different hula hoop festivals and retreats that I've spent the last 4 or 5 years teaching at. I've taught both hula hoop dance technique and also self-care for hula hoopers, kind of drawing in my Pilates knowledge and teaching the hula hoopers how to take care of their bodies. And now that I'm out here and I'm working on this online teacher training and I'm working on this teleseminar, I'm I'm really focusing on partnerships. I think that for a long time in my business, I was a solo ship, and I felt like I had to do everything myself. And what I've learned, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, is that our tribe, is really where our worth is, and our the potential of our business and the potential of new ideas. So I've been focusing on not just hula hoop teachers, but other movement teachers, connecting with them, finding out what projects they're working on, finding out what are the things that are important to them, and then in some way offering them a service or offering them an idea or offering them a tool that's been helpful to me, and just developing some kind of relationship with them, so that even if nothing comes out of it at that onset, there's a relationship down the road where something might come up, and I might think of somebody and be, oh, this would be perfect to work with so and so on, and then that other person has their whole network of followers, their whole army, like my army. Mm-hmm. And it's just, and I think that that's a really important tool for not only internet-based businesses, but also locally based businesses as well.
I think that you are so spot on with that, and one of the things, if this is not already a part of your business model, given that, I would suggest that maybe you become this hub and clearinghouse, as you already are, for hula hoop dancing, and on your site maybe you can specify local people so that anyone, if I'm in, Mozambique and I want to find the local hula hooping lesson, that I can then come to your site and find out who my local person is, my local dancer, and so that might be another way of you becoming this central voice and for the unification of all of your hula hoop sisters.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, creative people are my original tribe, and I have an MFA actually, so one of the things that I found with my creative brothers and sisters is that many creative folks, artists, dancers, actors, writers, don't think of themselves as business people. Mm-hmm. Bex, did you always think of yourself as a business person? And what's your advice for other creatives and artists who want to create a business?
Great question. I think I have actually always thought of myself as a business person just because I'm so fiercely independent. And I also had that experience of my parents lovingly steering me towards practicality. So I had that in my brain that like I always had to take care of my own butt, But then there was also this really strong desire of mine not to work for anybody else. And so I think I have always thought of myself as a business person. But what I realize now, I've been in business since 2003, and I'd say independently in business since 2007. What I realize now, though, is that my model of business up to that point, or up to this point, or up to maybe a year or two ago, was just good enough. It was almost like plain business. Mm. And as of maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, I've sort of shifted my business idea of what I want my business to be and what's possible. So I think it's an ever-evolving thing. And my advice to anybody, an artist who is interested in getting into their own business practice, my advice would be network your booty off. I mean, and that doesn't, there's like sort of a stigma around networking, like business suits and shaking hands and whatnot. But for me, in my experience and my perception of networking, it's doing passion research. Like just going into an internet hole and finding all the people that you are loving what they're doing and loving their message and loving their mission, and finding out more about them, and then reaching out to them and asking them questions, and again, maybe offering them an idea or something that like you can help them with, or but getting on their radar in some way, even if it's just to ask a question or could I have 15 minutes of your time on a phone call? I really love your mission and message. I'm trying to get into this kind of work. Would you mind, and different people will respond differently to that, but I think that the more connections you have and the more people you have on your side when you're starting a business as an artist, the more successful you'll be, because you'll have people who've been through these experiences. And if you begin those relationships at the onset, then when you face a challenge, you might have further developed a relationship. You might be able to call on one of these people to talk you through something.
Well said, well said. And I would also add to that, and get some business education, get some coaching, go to a program. That's why I'm creating my Sacred Business Academy and become the guru classes. There are tons of coaches that I like to say all good coaches have good coaches if you have coaches. So if Oprah needs producers to help her to do what she's going to do, why would you think as a solopreneur that you've got to go it all alone?
And I would absolutely add that shift that I was talking about, that where I was thinking of my previous setup is playing business. The big component that has made me look at my business differently and see what's possible is hiring a business coach. And I absolutely agree with you. That's one of the best things that I've ever done for my business.
Excellent, excellent. Me too. So, Bex, were you always so bubbly, happy, and high energy? It's fun to ask you this question because people ask me this all the time.
I bet they do.
And what do you do? Were you always this bubbly? And what do you do when you feel anxious or sad or depressed or scared?
Yeah. Well, I have been always this bubbly. I think I have a dark side too, for sure. But my public self is definitely very bubbly and very bright. As a leader, I think that's a requirement, but it comes very naturally to me. But yeah, I absolutely suffer with depression and anxiety, and I had a health issue in 2012 that really shifted my whole mindset. I became much more sensitive to my environment around me. I became more sensitive to the people around me and the intake of messages, and I was suffering depression and I was suffering anxiety, and this is one of the things that kind of led me to the decision of leaving New York. And that was a really, really hard decision because New York was my love, like my huge love. But recognizing that it was not making my mental health better, like I had kind of fallen out of love with it, and rather than staying in it, it felt like I was, if you're in a relationship that's not working, it just kind of felt like that. Like it was working so great for so long, and then it just shifted, and then I was like, okay, rather than wishing this was different, I think I need to remove myself. So moving to Colorado was a big thing because now I can more easily access nature. I can more easily access sunshine 300 days of the year. And I'm not knocking New York at all, because last year, gosh, I came back to New York about 7 times, so not knocking New York at all. But when I get into a space of anxiety or depression, or I try to lay off the technology. I'll either set, like, if I'm busy or something, I'll set like a 30-minute time zone where I'm technology free. No phone, no computer, even music. Sometimes I'll even leave that out. I try to get into nature. I make sure that I get 2 days off a week. I didn't do that for a long time. I worked for 6 days a week a lot, even though some of them were short days. But now for me, having 2 days off in a row, fully and completely, is vital to my mental health. Spending time with my man is hugely important because he's super busy with his work and I'm super busy with my work, and we have to make sure that we make time for each other that's fully present and connected. And I think that the other thing that really helps me through moments of anxiety and depression or just those feelings is being in a spirit of gratitude. And that's where my little abundance journal comes in really well. It's funny because it's funny how like my body has shifted so much in time, and how things that never triggered me before will be a trigger for me now for some reason, like a big group of people at a show or something, So I'll pull out my book and I'll just start writing down the things that make me feel really expansive in moments where I'm feeling really constricted.
Ooh, I think that is a really great tool, very important tool that you shared there throughout, but particularly at the end, because a lot of people have issues. I know that I'm one of them, with anxiety, with social anxiety, social issues, and so being able. Can you expand on that? Taking out your notebook and.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It was almost unconsciously. Like 2 weeks ago, I was at an event, and it was a fun event. It was daytime. It was outdoor music. There were events, and I was there with some friends, and I got separated from them for a moment, and I found myself just like in the middle of this huge crowd, and it was loud, and like I'm sensitive to those things now, and I was just feeling shortness of breath, and and not that I get panic attacks, but I definitely feel anxiety, and I knew that I had the power to take the situation into my own hands. So I worked myself out of the crowd and got into an open space, and I took out my little book and I just started writing down the things that I had seen that day that made me smile, or the things that made me feel rich. Like I bumped into somebody that I knew earlier that day, 5 minutes after a conversation about running into people we know. So I wrote that down. Like that made me feel really expansive. And before I knew it, I wasn't feeling anxious anymore. In fact, a gentleman came up and started talking to me. I think he might have been hitting on me, but I'm engaged, so it doesn't even really register anymore. But so, it's funny how just turning, recognizing it and then having a tool at your disposal to practice can really just shift things for you in ways that, you don't expect.
That's a wonderful tool in practice. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I want now for us to talk about your new direction, Bex. This is very exciting. You have an event that you're putting together called Hone Your Heart Magnet: Secrets to Being Authentically Irresistible and Attract Your Divine Soulmate.
Yeah.
I am a love advice columnist for Essence, which is the biggest African American magazine for women. And I have to tell you, I watched a video of you getting proposed to. People, this is the video that I'm going to post at facebook.com/Abiola TV. It was breathtakingly beautiful. I was crying. Yes, I was totally crying. Tell us about this new direction, and just thank you for sharing the love that is going on with you, with all of us, with that video.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, the video, I mentioned before that these very large hula hoop performances were part of my marketing plan to support my classes. And so I went back to New York to have another big hoop dance. Not because I was promoting classes in New York, but just I had so many people interested. I was already on the East Coast, so I was just going to do it anyway. And my man surprised me at the end of my performance.
Yay for good men!
Amazing men. He came out and he had communicated with my rehearsal director, so all of my hoopers knew. All of the people there to photograph and video the dance knew about this. Everybody was in on it. About 100 people knew about it, and I didn't.
They're great secret keepers, all of them.
Very, very good secret keepers. But yeah, the way, God, it's so mind-blowing because it's so it's almost too good to be true, Abiola. I'm telling you, he proposed to me at the end of this dance 4 years ago when I produced my first big group performance. I had met him a week before we were supposed to perform. And on our first date, sight unseen, he was a videographer at the time, he said, "Do you have anybody shooting your dance?" And I was like, "No." And he offered to shoot my dance on our first date, sight unseen. So then, of course, a week later, I'm there with 50 of my hula hoopers. We're performing. He's there with his camera crew shooting. And the 2 songs that I had put together months ago, I'm dancing this piece, and I'm realizing that these music songs it's a love story. And I'm dancing, and the music switches into the second song, and I realize, oh my God, this love story is my own. I wrote my own love story. And here's this man, you know, he's entered my life, and I've invited all of my people here to welcome him into my life. And the name of the piece was called Hello. So just all of the magic that surrounded our coming together spilled into all of the magic that surrounded us getting to know one another. We have so many things in common, all these little things and all these big things, and just so much serendipity. And just the things that I feel about our relationship and the things that I see in other couples that I know they have this kind of love, I'm so inspired by all of that to share with other women that it's possible. That kind of love exists. It's out there, and women can have it. Those men exist. And it makes my heart cry when I see friends of mine or other women in their 30s and 40s, and they're in relationships that don't make them happy. And there are a number of reasons why they stay in those relationships. And I think that, you know, well, this is how it is one of those reasons. And so I'm making it my mission to spread the word that it is totally possible to have divine love, to find a divine soulmate. And the work just starts with a little bit of work, you know, and that's where the authentically irresistible bit comes in.
Well, this new direction, you were just made for this, and I know that it's going to be incredibly successful for you. Oh, so just thank you for offering it to us. As we are moving toward the end of our dialogue today, I want to ask you what the best advice that you've ever received is, Bex. Best advice you've ever received.
Totally. The best advice I've ever received was a book recommendation, actually. I had a fabulous friend of mine tell me, this was about the time when I was leaving my full-time job and trying to pursue Pilates teaching as a full-time gig. He said, "You've got to read the book, feel the fear, and do it anyway." And not only that piece of advice, but all the advice in that book changed my life, for sure. Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's a book by Susan Jeffers, and I'm actually reading another one of her books right now, which is Living with Uncertainty. Because nothing is ever certain, nothing is ever the same, you know.
I didn't know about that other book. I'm going to have to check that out. Living with Uncertainty?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always uncertainty, there's always fear, and I think that we're successful when we're able to deal with that fear, when we're able to, you know, like we talked about before, honor it, talk to it, recognize what it's trying to show us in our life, and then dismiss it. Thank it for its job, or thank it for its role in our life, and then dismiss it.
Well said. Well said. This has been such a juicy conversation. Someone was saying that she was having Petal M having issues with viewing our conversation on MacBook. You can also, this will be archived on YouTube, and you can also find it if you subscribe on iTunes. Just type my name into iTunes, and this will come up, and you'll be able to find Bex and this incredible conversation there. And so, Bex, I define a sacred bombshell as a woman who loves, honors, and cherishes herself in mind, body, and spirit. Given this definition, Bex, what makes you a sacred bombshell?
Oh, I love that definition. And the way that I answer it, I think of the ways that I cherish my mind, and the way that I cherish my mind is that I make decisions. I try my hardest not to get stuck in the indecisive space, but to make a decision and point myself in that direction and move forward. I cherish my body. I move my body every single day, and I think that daily movement is one of the greatest gifts that we can afford ourselves for our lifelong mobility. I cherish my spirit. I follow my heart. I follow my bliss. Even when I feel like I'm jumping off cliffs and leaping out into the nothing, you know, I know, I believe that my spirit has got me, and I have faith and I trust and follow it.
That is just such a, we've got to put that as like one of the new mantras for Spiritpreneur School. I believe that my spirit has got me. Yes. Yeah. So please tell the Sacred Bombshell Tribe and the Bexicans where they can find you and how they can become involved with the future, the Irresistible Love Magnet training that's coming up.
Definitely. HoneYourHeartMagnet.com will go live next month. So we can either be on the lookout for that, or right now you can find me at senseofmotion.com, and I have a lovely love letter that goes out twice a month. That's Letters from Bexico, and I share different videos of movement, stretch, strength, and wellness tips. And I'll also be sharing information on Hone Your Heart Magnet. That will be a 21-day interview series coming up in June, and that will be shared on my Sense of Motion newsletter as well. My YouTube channel is also Sense of Motion. So if you want to go straight to the YouTube, you can find the engagement video. You can find tons of hula hooping videos, both just solo me or me and my big groups, as well as my Brain Body Bliss playlist of wellness tips.
Beautiful, and they can play with you also at Sense of Motion on Twitter and Facebook as well, right?
And I would say that I'm definitely playing on Instagram at senseofmotion.com, or at Sense of Motion, a little bit more than Twitter. I'm on Twitter, but you'll find me, you can play a little bit more with me on Instagram.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Bex, for this juicy, sacred, bombshell, spiritpreneur conversation. I know that all of the business bombshells are now Bexicans, as am I. So thank you, Bex. Yes, thank you so much. And for those of you who enjoyed this conversation and want to put these spiritpreneur practices into your own life, I am giving away, if you go to ownyourbombshell.com, the Sacred Bombshell Spiritpreneur Success Blueprint, how to take your self-love to self-launch, get your mission, message, and movement, and your magic into the world and make an impact. Thank you so much for watching and playing with us today. We will see you out in Bexico. Namaste, everyone. Thank you for watching. The Sacred Bombshell in Me sees, honors, accepts, and adores the Sacred Bombshell in you. Bye. Woohoo!